he just went low. He's in his head. He's in his head. He's open. His head wide open. Cracked open in the face.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mario Man 2100 back here with another episode of How's My Team. So, literally got to talk about an action-packed week once again. Double header in terms of Sydney Derby for both the Wanderers men and women's teams. Obviously, the women playing first before the men, and obviously Liverpool playing in the Champions League as well as in the Premier League. So, let's get started. Just feels weird. I'm recording the end of last week's episode yesterday in terms of time of recording this and recording the start of this the next day, so it feels like I've been non-stop, even though I haven't recorded for the last couple of days because obviously there's been some stuff happening and obviously the episode was delayed. So without further ado, let's get started. So yes, Thursday morning, that means it's Liverpool playing in Champions League football, obviously playing against Qarabag at home in the Champions League, and it was a thumping 6-0 win for Liverpool over Qarabag, 6-0, which obviously means that we automatically qualify for the round of 16 at the end of the group stages, which is fantastic. So it was 2-0 at half time. Scoring got started in the 15th minute with Alexis McAllister scoring the 15th minute, then Florian Wirtz in the 21st minute, then at half time. So it was 2-0 up at half time. Unfortunately, Frimpong, who's actually been playing for us the last couple of weeks, has been playing actually really good footy for Liverpool, got subbed off in the 4th minute due to an injury. Don't know quite yet what the extent was, but it did say in the app while the game was playing, because I did see it when the game started, because I was up, obviously it was 7 o'clock in the morning, so it was up, that he was limping, so it might have been his leg, but I'm not sure what the extent of the injury is yet. Obviously articles will come out about it pretty soon, I imagine, and probably would be on the wrap-up of everything else as well. After half-time, Mohamed Salah scored for the first time since he come back from AFCON duty in the 50th minute. Hugo scored in the 57th minute. McAllister scored his second goal in the 61st minute. And then we got one right in the end in the 90th minute. Federico Chiesa scoring in the 90th minute before full time. So it was six goals past Qarabag, which was a fantastic result. Does it say? He pulled up with a limp, so I don't know whether it was a contact injury or not. Pretty interesting result, obviously, with everything that's going on. They already have an article on who, obviously, Liverpool can face, the 4 possible opponents that they could face. Not sure when these guys play each other or play games, but the sides that could advance from the playoffs to play against Liverpool is Atletico Madrid, Club Brugge, Galatasaray. The team that I always have an issue with saying, we could play them again, as well as Atletico Madrid. Obviously, we played Atletico Madrid one of the first weeks of the year. So we could play against them and Juventus. So out of those 4 teams, ultimately those games we played on, obviously considering they're two-leg games from here on out, on March 10th and 11th, or and March 17th or 18th. So so Liverpool will host the second leg in their tie at the round of 16. So Anfield, they'll be playing at home at Anfield in the second game of the 2 legs. But as for the table, obviously there was a goalie goal as well, which I'll get to in a second. But on top, obviously, is Arsenal with 24 points. So they ended up going perfect 8 for 8 through the year. I don't know if they actually did do what I said that they were going to do, and just obviously had some of the juniors playing, because I don't think they actually ended up doing that. So yeah, they remain perfect. Second is Bayern Munich with 21 points. Liverpool jump into 3rd position, so they jump up a position, obviously with the goal difference as well. Obviously +6 is pretty handy as well, with 18 points. Tottenham jump to 4th position with 17. Then the group that comes up next is all on 16 points. So that's Barcelona, Chelsea in 6th position, Sporting CP, and Manchester City just squeaking in to the top 8. So all those teams automatically qualify, which means that Real Madrid is in 9th position on 15 points with Inter Milan. They just missed. So all these positions from 9 right down to 24 are all in the knockout stage. So Real Madrid, Inter Milan, PSG going up against Newcastle. They actually ended up having a draw, so they kind of screwed each other up there. But again, that was always going to be the way. Juventus in 13th, Atletico Madrid in 14th, Atalanta in 15th, Leverkusen in 16th, Borussia Dortmund in 17th, Olympiacos, in 18th position, Club Brugge in 19th position, and the team again, they can't say, they're in 20th position. Monaco in 21st position. Qarabag stay in despite the 6-0 loss in 22nd position. But a Glimp in 23rd position, and in last position of the playoffs, and which benefited from a late goalie goal, basically the last kick of the game, was Benfica. So in that, when it comes to teams in the elimination stages, Marseille, they actually get knocked out despite being on the same amount of points. It's just their goal difference, and it was by 1 goal. So Benfica was in with -2, and Marseille was out with -3. So literally, if they didn't get hit with 3-0 loss against Liverpool or any other of the other results, if they lost by 1 less goal, I think it would have been on how many goals have been scored, and I think Martial probably had more than Benfica, but who knows at this point. But they miss. Union SG also miss. PSV also miss. They're in 28th position. Athletic Club in 29th. Napoli in 30th. Copenhagen, Ajax, Eintracht Frankfurt, all down there. Villarreal and Kairat were still with 1 point each on the bottom. So yeah, so it's a very interesting, very interesting group of qualifiers there. So yes, managed to stay in the top 4 and actually made it into 3rd position. So yeah, so Atletico Madrid, Juventus, Club Brugge, or the team that obviously I can't say, are the 4 teams that could play Liverpool, obviously being in 3rd position. So that's, in terms of the table, you've got 13th and 14th, or 19th and 20th, depending on what results happen. So we'll see what happens. Ultimately, of course, it's a huge situation for Liverpool. Obviously, they have a few weeks off from Champions League football. They'll obviously be back in early to mid-March, obviously with automatic qualification, which is fantastic. But, it's not going to get any easier from here. So 6-0 win against Qarabag for Liverpool, into automatic qualification in the round of 16, and we'll see what we go from here. But up and up, so we'll see. So I could have recorded this yesterday, but it is Monday morning. Just in with some more results. Obviously, Liverpool played on Sunday morning for me, relatively early. Obviously, I was up yesterday around the time they were playing anyway, because obviously Royal Rumble was playing at 6 a.m. That morning, obviously because it was in Saudi Arabia, so it was 6 a.m. my time in terms of watching that. I know I watched the wrestling, but we'll go past that. But yeah, it was Liverpool up against Newcastle at home, and it was 4-1 win. So finally, Liverpool have gotten the monkey off the back in terms of the first win of 2026, first win of the year. Obviously not the first win of the season, but the first win of 2026 after 4 or 5 games, maybe 6 games of playing, and they haven't won a game so far. But it ended up being 2-1 at half-time. So actually they ended up scoring first. So Newcastle ended up scoring first in the 36th minute. Then Hugo scored a double in the 41st and the 43rd minute to half-time. Then Florian Wirtz scored in the 67th minute. And then obviously Canade scored in the 3rd minute of stoppage time before full-time, ending the game at 4-1. I kind of probably wanted to delay actually doing this because obviously wanted to do a table update in terms of when all the games have been played. I think all of them have been played. Apparently Burnley's missing one, but I don't know why, because and Sunderland. Okay, so that's the only game that hasn't played at the moment. Is Sunderland and Burnley. But Liverpool still in 6th position, obviously with other games going against Liverpool at this point in time. So obviously we were up to, I think, 4th or 5th position yesterday. I'm just going to readjust myself so I can sit comfortably, because I've got my phone on charge at the same time. But yeah, so they were up to 4th, I think was the highest, if not 5th position. And yeah, they've dropped back down to where they were at the start of the week, which obviously was 6th position in terms of the table. So ultimately on top is still Arsenal on 53 points, so they did end up getting another win. They got a 4-0 win over Leeds. Second was Manchester City, who ended up drawing with Tottenham Hotspur on 47, so there is a 6-point gap between Arsenal and Manchester City. Third position is Aston Villa, 1 point behind them on 46, so after a loss as well for them, so not ideal. Manchester United stay in 4th position on 41 points. Chelsea still in 5th position on 40, and Liverpool in 6th position in 39 points. Brentford move up to 7th position with 36. Fulham drop to 8th position with 34. Everton jump into 9th position also on 34 points. And Newcastle, obviously with the 4-0 loss, drop to 10th position with 33. And a big hit, obviously, to their goal difference, obviously being -3 from this game. So they're back down to a flat 0 in terms of goal difference. At the moment, obviously with the game in hand, Sunderland are in 11th position, but they can move, in terms of goal difference, they could probably move as high as 8th position if they do get a win over Burnley. Obviously, unless it's an absolute drubbing, like we're talking 6-0 plus, then they won't jump Brentford into 7th position. So 8th position is probably the highest that they will go. If they do win, obviously they'd have to win big to jump into 7th. Bournemouth in 12th position on 33 points, as well as obviously Sunderland and Newcastle above them. Bournemouth actually doing some pretty good results the last couple of weeks, obviously jumping back up the table. Brighton moved down to 13th position with 31 points. Tottenham stay in 14th with 29. Then 15th position is Crystal Palace, also on 29 points. Leeds United in 16th position on 26, as well as Nottingham Forest in 17th position in the same amount of points, so 26 points. 18th position in the relegation zone is West Ham. There's been no difference there. 20 points, obviously, for them. 19th is Burnley with 15, and Wolves are still on the bottom with 8 points. So ultimately, big game coming up for Liverpool on Monday is against Manchester City at home. So a huge game, huge top 6 clash. Realistically, a situation where Manchester City could drop right out of 2nd position into 3rd position if Liverpool do win against Manchester City. It's a big game, and in fact the next couple of weeks are really important for February, because obviously we're in February now, because they have 3 games back to back in a week after that. So they've got Thursday game on the 12th for the Premier League against Sunderland. Then the FA Cup round 4 is against Brighton at home. Then obviously back to the Premier League on Sunday the next week. So yeah, so 3 games is about a 9-10 day span for Liverpool after this Manchester City game. So very important to at least pick up a point, if not 3 points from this. But obviously Manchester City, very tough opponent, and obviously we'll be looking forward to trying to decrease that deficit behind Arsenal, obviously trying to keep ahead of Aston Villa, trying to keep ahead of Manchester United as well. Obviously Chelsea and Liverpool as well, but obviously they got some points to make up. But 4-1 win over Newcastle after a 6-0 win against Qarabag. So that's 10 goals to 1 in the space of 2 games for Liverpool this week, which is a great result. So ultimately we move over to the A-League, and we'll start with the women, because obviously the women played first in terms of the doubleheader. Obviously there was a doubleheader at Allianz Stadium for Sydney Derbies. Both the women and the men played at Allianz, and after a long period of time of not just scoring in a Sydney Derby, if not just a win, Western Sydney Wanderers, I was going to say Sydney FC, Western Sydney Wanderers finally won a Sydney Derby for the first time, I think, since 2019. It was 3-2 win over Sydney FC, and I watched probably the second half of this game, a lot of it. I think I didn't watch about 5-10 minutes there in the second half because I was having a shower, because obviously was not planning to come home straight away after a long day at work, because I was expecting to go to with my dad to my aunt's place to watch both games. His car ended up not starting. He had a problem with the battery. He's fixed it now, because he did have problems with it yesterday as well. So I had to walk home. So I ended up watching the rest of this game, barring, like I said, 5-10 minutes after having a shower, and the Wanderers were playing relatively well. Ultimately, I feel like Sydney FC were under a bit of pressure. Though in saying that, they actually did score first in the game. They scored in the 7th minute, so very, very early into the contest. Possibly the defence was not good on that first goal. Then obviously Cesare scored a first goal in the A-League Women's competition, scored in the 3rd minute of stoppage time in the first half. So it ended up being 1-1 at half time. And then we had 2 goals scored in the 60th and the 70th minute, one by a goal scorer that had scored earlier this year. I think actually she scored in either the Canberra game or the Brisbane game. I forget which one. Not sure how to pronounce it. Nsard. And then Yuan Kong, who's obviously the one of the international players that's come in for the Wanderers, scored in the 70th minute. So it ended up being, it was going to be 3-1. I was like, hopefully they can keep that result. And I was like, oh, I'll go have a shower. And then obviously Sydney FC scored just before I got out and got dry in the 84th minute to make it a little bit interesting towards the end of the game. But the defence was really, really up for it. And the Wanderers, yeah, they played well. 57% possession to 43. Shot accuracy was 42%, even though they had scored 3 goals. 7 corners, obviously, for the Western Sydney Wanderers. No cards whatsoever in the game as well, which is great. Passing accuracy was much better at 76%. It was one of those situations where the Wanderers played well in terms of playing in the game. Now, ultimately, does that mean that they move off the bottom of the ladder? No, it doesn't. They're still on the bottom of the ladder. Obviously, goal difference being the thing that is obviously the only thing that is holding us on the bottom of the ladder at the moment. Because it was only +1, obviously, on goal difference. So we've moved from -13 to -12, which is why I wanted that 3-1 result actually coming our way, if not scoring more goals in the game. But ultimately scoring 3 after not scoring for like 5-6 years, really well played. And they didn't score 1, they scored 3. So in terms of results, in terms of the table, Melbourne City are on the top on 23 points. Wellington Phoenix jumped to 2nd position, or it's actually staying in 2nd position, with a huge win for them as well. I think it ended up being 6-1. I think in terms of the results, we'll have a look. Give me a moment. It was a big margin, I know that for sure. So it's 2-2 for Brisbane and Central Coast, 2-1 Adelaide over Melbourne City, was I going to say Manchester City. Canberra United 3-1 over Victory, although they were behind in that game, 5-1 and ended up being against Jets for Wellington Phoenix. So it was a big deficit, obviously. Thought it was going to be 6, but ended up being 5-1. So plus 16 on their goal difference as well, which is actually, I think, the biggest margin, I think, for any of the teams. Including, I think, even Melbourne City. I think Melbourne City might be around about the same. They scored 21 minus 13, so 21 for 7. So it'd be 8. Yeah, so actually doubled what Melbourne City's goal difference is at the moment, which is crazy. But Wellington in 2nd on 21 points. Canberra United stay in 3rd position on 21 points. So towards the end of the Wanderers game, they actually dropped as low as 6th position. So that's how close it is in those top 6 positions right now, that a loss in any form or fashion can drop you right down. But obviously picked up a win against Melbourne Victory. 4th position is Adelaide United on 20. Then we have Brisbane Roar on 19 points in 5th position. 6th position is Mariners on 19 points as well. Then 7th position is Melbourne Victory with 17. Also on 17 is Perth Glory in 8th position. 9th position is Newcastle Jets on 16. Then obviously on the bottom, both on 12 points, is Sydney FC and Western Sydney Wanderers. It's just obviously goal difference there. -9 compared to -12, which is a bit of a bummer. But again, Sydney FC played 3 games in the space of about a week and a half, maybe even a week. So very interesting for them. Our next games, actually, very importantly, when it comes to the Wanderers women, they actually do have a game on Wednesday. So when this video goes up, it'll be a couple of hours after this video goes up. They'll be playing against Melbourne City. And what is the catch-up game for the round 5 clash for them. So they've got some games coming up. So obviously if I scroll back to round 5, yes, it'll be on the 4th of February for them. And then moving into, I think it's round 14. No. Okay, so round 16. And then playing on Saturday at home, I should say, against Adelaide United. So ultimately playing top spots, bottom spot versus top spot again during the midweek. And then obviously it's bottom spot versus 4th position. So it'd be either, last or second last after the Melbourne City result against 4th position. So it's going to be a tough week for the Wanderers women, but ultimately I feel like winning big against Sydney FC after getting a win last week as well, they've kind of been in a situation where they've just been up and up, obviously against Mariners as well, which obviously champions last year. Mariners obviously being in the top 4 at the point that we played them as well. Having some good results, obviously having that draw against Canberra United as well, obviously when they were still going relatively hard. I feel like there is a situation where this team is gelling really well, despite some injuries being in the team, and hopefully they can do well against Melbourne City, even if they get into a situation where it's a loss, but it's just like a 1-goal loss. I think that'll be at least a decent result. If they can get a draw, that'd be fantastic for them. Going into obviously that Adelaide game, a win would be fantastic. Would throw the table all over the place. If they can get a win against Melbourne City, it's going to be tough, but I've seen weirder things happen. Again, like I said, that Canberra United game obviously was one that speaks to mind, because we didn't expect to get any points out of that game at all, with the way that Canberra were playing, and we did get points out of it. So fantastic result there for the Wanderers women, especially in a Sydney Derby. A big game like that, getting a big result and getting a win for the first time in a long time. It's great to get the monkey off the back and relatively looking like they're going to possibly get off the bottom of the ladder, which is even better for them because they've been playing well all of this year. They've been playing really well all this year. They've been close in a lot of games all season, even including in 2025, but 2026 looks like a better year for them in terms of this part of the season so far. So great result for them, 3-2 in the first of the doubleheader in terms of the Sydney Derbies. But it's more than I can say for the men, because obviously they played after the women, and despite leading in the first minute, they scored in the first 40 seconds of the game. They lost 4-1 to Sydney FC away from home, and I missed, obviously, my dad did end up getting his car sorted with the battery. He just needed, obviously, a jump start. But but obviously, yes, like I said, he has a new battery now. But Ryan Fraser scored in the 40 seconds in, 47 seconds in, something like that, in the first minute of the game. So literally all the momentum were with the Wanderers at the start of the game. I missed that goal, and then obviously Sydney FC equalised in the 10th minute to go up at half time at 1-1. I watched probably about 23 minutes in. I think I ended up getting at my aunt's place. So I watched mostly the second half. I was having issues with my jaw, with a little bit of pain, so I was taking some paracetamol, taking some Panadol. And then Sydney FC scored in the 49th, the 55th, and the 68th minute. And yeah, it was pretty average from the Wanderers men. In terms of stats, like it says possession was 50-50. I'm sure it was more than that to Sydney FC, but shooting accuracy is 62%, which I think it's kind of a little bit bullshit. 47 for Sydney FC, I can kind of see that because obviously Sydney did end up having a lot more shots on goal as well. But yeah, 3 offsides to the Wanderers, 2 to Sydney FC, but the Wanderers played they had up tempo, and obviously played up to the possession game, and the way that the game was being played was that it was going to be, topsy-turvy when it comes to that game in particular, but they didn't play good enough, and obviously 4 scored against, 3 of them obviously being deflections, which didn't help things at all, but in saying that, the first goal probably shouldn't have happened either, because especially as a goalkeeper, Lawrence Thomas did one thing completely wrong, and you do this and you learn this from when you're a junior. You learn to go down with your knee and covering all bases so that you don't get the ball between your legs. And what happened was that in the 10th minute, that's exactly what happened. It went through his legs like an idiot, and I know he was getting set, but you knew when he was going to shoot, and he shot, you didn't get your leg down in time, like your reaction time was way off, and you didn't get your leg down in time, and they scored. And it kind of threw the momentum of the game completely in the other direction. And yeah, 3 deflections doesn't help things in the second half, but at the same time, it's one of those things where the defense needs to be a lot better. They need to be in a situation where they're not shooting that much. Because, yeah, and some of the shots on goal were very average, if not like the possession game. They just kept going backwards a lot in the game, and it was kind of embarrassing as a Wanderers fan to see that after obviously the win that they had obviously last week. Obviously, yes, very late against Perth, but they played okay in some of the previous games that they've had. Obviously, there's been some losses in there as well, but there's been some losses where they've been pretty decent. They've just been unlucky, but 4-1 is very average and at best. They played, and wouldn't be surprised if some of the team gets changed in terms of players playing to start. Obviously, Ryan Fraser being on to start was a great decision. And ultimately, yes, he did get subbed off pretty decently into probably about halfway through the second half. But, he had a few shots on goal. He played a lot of good possession as well. Obviously, yes, did possess and pass backwards, but ultimately he's a striker, so he needs to do that sometimes. But he's dangerous. He's a dangerous weapon. Looks like he's going to be a good player for us, and hopefully he can score more goals, because obviously it's 2 goals in 2 games already, and we're going to need it because we play at home on Saturday, so it'll be a double header again for the Wanderers at home, though obviously the women obviously playing Adelaide United at Combank compared to the men who play Melbourne City. So going to be very, very interesting in terms of results there, because there's a huge couple of big games coming up for us. Obviously, Sydney Derby was one of the big ones that we probably needed a result for, and a 4-1 loss is not the result that we want. Obviously, been very average in terms of, yes, winning obviously against Perth, Perth Glory, very late, but then obviously having a 2-1 loss against Jets, who ultimately Jets are flying at the moment, which is very, very good for them, because they deserve it. Like, their fans have been deserving it for a long time, and obviously getting a big result for them. In terms of actually what was the score, was 4-1 earlier in the day, so it was a 10-goal fest on Saturday. In fact, actually, sorry, I should say 13, because obviously Perth ended up winning against Auckland FC, so that kind of threw things through a loop as well at the top of the table, and we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, so Melbourne City obviously is the next game coming up for the men. Then jumps to round 18, just the 22nd, but I'm sure there's a catch-up game somewhere along the line for the Wanderers here somewhere. The 13th against Phoenix at home. So 13th and 7th. Okay, so the Wanderers will have one game this weekend coming, and then have 2 games coming up next week. What week was that? Was that round 12? Round 12. So we'll have a Friday game on the 13th, and then on the 22nd. So it's the next week after. So they'll have the bye. They'll have a bye in between, obviously, playing Wellington Phoenix at home. So they'll play on Saturday, then on Friday, then on Sunday. So actually won't be 2 games in the same week. It'll be one game apiece. As for the table, we have a new leader. We have a new leader on the top. We have Newcastle Jets on top with 27 points after that win. A relatively good win at that against Brisbane Roar. Second position is Sydney FC with 25. Also on 25 points is Auckland FC in third position. So they've actually dropped 2 spots in the last couple of weeks for them. Obviously, big clash for them coming up, because that is second versus third this coming week. And actually, they play twice, because obviously they've got to play that catch-up game that was delayed and postponed at Leichhardt. They play that in a couple of weeks' time. So they play twice in a space of, I think, like 15 or 18 days or something like that with Sydney FC. Fourth position is MacArthur Bulls on 24 points. Adelaide United on 23 points in 5th position. 6th position is Melbourne City on 21. Also on 21 is Brisbane Roar in 7th position. 8th position is Melbourne Victory with 20. 9th position is Perth Glory on 19 points. 10th position is Wellington Phoenix, also on 19 points. Central Coast Mariners in 11th position with 16, and then obviously the Wanderers on the bottom again with 15 points to their name. And yeah, it's not going to get any easier. Obviously Melbourne City at 6th position, then 10th position against Wellington Phoenix, and then obviously against was it Adelaide coming up. So yeah, Melbourne City. And then that game was Central Coast. So, yeah, so it could be battle of the bottom, or near the bottom of the ladder again, coming up for them. And we're playing away. We're playing at Polytech. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks for the Wanderers, because obviously they play sixth position, they play the two teams near the bottom of the ladder in terms of Wellington Phoenix and Central Coast Mariners. Obviously, with other results obviously pending in terms of obviously games being played next weekend, obviously at the same time as the Wanderers and Melbourne City game. But yeah, 4-1 against Sydney FC. Very average performance in a Sydney Derby. More, especially after the 1-0 win that we had in the first one. To lose by 3 goals, obviously, have 4 scored against us, especially after scoring very early in the game. It's just not good enough. And that'll be it for this episode of How's My Team. So we'll actually talk about the women, because the women actually played last night as well. And it ended up being a 3-1 loss to Man United. Man United being in 4th position before this game started. They're now in 2nd position. Obviously, other results kind of went our way. So Liverpool are still 1 point away from jumping up to over West Ham. But ultimately, it was 0 at half time, so it ended up being a decent result. And they scored. So it ended up having 3 goals scored in the space of 8 to 9 minutes. So Man United scored in the 52nd minute, we scored in the 59th minute, and then they scored immediately after in the 60th minute. So before obviously putting another one in at the 87th minute, very late into the game. But you know what, we will say that they did play well in keeping obviously a team that's now in 2nd position in terms of their competition and playing relatively well at bay for at least 60 minutes. And they played a really good up-tempo. I think they obviously kept that 2-1 deficit. Man United kept it really well. Obviously the defence was pretty good, because there was shots on from Liverpool that didn't go in and went very wide. But I think Liverpool are playing relatively well. So ultimately, for the women, next up is Aston Villa, and Villa are in 8th position right now. So a very possible game that could go our way in terms of the table. Because then it's Aston Villa and then it's Chelsea, which Chelsea at the moment are in 3rd position in the women's competition. Not talking about any of the NFL right now. Obviously, we got the NFC Championship game last week. They have a week between the Championship game and the Super Bowl, so obviously we'll talk about the Super Bowl next week in terms of the episode, and I will be recording at least the end of the video after that gets played. So ultimately, we will see. In terms of the Giants front, just seeing if there's anything. I don't think there was anything. I think upcoming is the Origin game. I think it's played in Western Australia. Obviously, it's Victoria versus the West, if not South Australia, something like that. In terms of the Titans, I know they're playing relatively soon in their first game. Any news? Not at the moment. Yeah, obviously the first game is the 7th of March, but in terms of the upcoming games for the preseason challenge, it's the 12th of February. So it's not next week, it'll be the week after. We play against the Dolphins first and then play against the Storm. Dolphins, we play at KO Stadium, and then we play on the Sunshine Coast against the Storm. So before leading into obviously that first game against the Sharks away, we'll be playing at Cronulla. So So next couple of weeks we will have some things that obviously change. Obviously we'll talk about the NFL and see how my Seattle Seahawks go next week. But we'll talk about them. We'll talk about obviously Liverpool against Manchester City. We'll also talk about obviously the Wanderers, both the Wanderers teams, both the women and the men. And obviously we'll, yes, like I said, talk about some more stuff coming up. But obviously with How's My Team, more episodes to be flowing in because we will, when the start of March comes around, obviously starting next month, everything will be going on. So it'll be the NRL, the AFL, we're talking about the A-League still, we're talking about the EPL still. At that point, obviously Champions League will be back by then, towards the start of March for Liverpool. Obviously we will know our opponents probably coming up relatively soon in the next few weeks as well. So we'll see that happen as well. But it's just one of those things, we'll see what happens with it all. But with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of How's My Team. This has been Mario Man 2100. You guys have a great day night, and of course, take care.